Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine. Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatyadesha Tarine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shitatmane. Shri Gaura Karna Shakti Bhaktivedanta Iti Namane. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Shri Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasatyubheva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Hare Krishna. So Ramatulsi Prabhu, my spiritual master, always used to say when he got introduced, I paid them to say that. So it felt like that, like, oh my goodness, so Krishna has been kind, and devotees have been kind to engage me in service, like you are. All of you are engaging me in service. So thank you again so very much. So tonight, what I'd like to do is for us to explore 5 principles. 5 principles. I talk with my hand a lot, so you're going to see me moving my hands around. So 5 principles that happy couples know. They know this. And especially couples that have been married for some time, I would say anything over 5 years, definitely know these different principles. So we'll start with number 1. Happy couples, they know that grihastha, that is an ashram. Grihastha life is really an ashram. And it is meant for spiritual growth and progress. Basically, everybody knows that, right? That's why we get into these relationships. So we can develop personally. They help us to develop, ourselves, as well as together, each other, and as well as a community. So Srila Prabhupada, he taught us that family life and the home itself, it needs to be understood that it's an ashram. It's a place for spiritual culture and practice. So Grihastha life, it gives us the opportunity for growing spiritually, emotionally, economically, and socially. It's as a couples in the Grihastha ashram, we need to really investigate all of those areas of life constantly. Constantly, we're having to live spiritually in terms of everything that we do. So we're told that spiritual family life, successful spiritual family life, involves us supporting all the other ashrams. And especially the Grihastha ashram supports all the different ashrams financially, and in so many other ways we support the other ashram. Because this ashram, this Grihastha ashram, it's an ashram of responsibility, it's an ashram of charity, and it's an ashram for maturity. Right? This is where we become those persons that are evolving constantly. And, because we understand, we know that everything changes, and we know that everything ends, right? That's kind of basic Bhakti 101. We know that, we're going to get old, as I am experiencing. We're really going to get older, and, eventually we're going to die. So we know that. And given that we know that, we understand simultaneously in the Grihastha ashram, we need to be making sacrifices and becoming more renounced. That's also part of the Grihastha ashram. So our Vaishnava theology and our practice, it reminds us of renunciation and sacrifices at all stages of life, no matter where we are in our spiritual development. For most devotees, becoming truly renounced is a gradual process. It's not like it happens overnight. It takes time. So as the devotees become more mature in spiritual life, then an internal transformation takes place. Something happens by us hearing and chanting and serving. There's something Krishna in the heart, Paramatma, arranges for us to transform. And this takes time. It takes some time for this to happen. However, as we are transforming, then our renunciation, our mood of renunciation becomes more natural and it becomes more blissful. It's not something that we're to do before we're really ready. It's something we prepare for in life, but it's something, however, it's something we keep in mind constantly. We don't try to force ourselves or force others to artificially renounce, because we understand that it requires spiritual maturity and we don't want it to be superficial. So, because if it's superficial, then what's going to happen is the person or persons, if they're not able to, follow this mood of renunciation, they'll just become more attracted to material life. And so as a result of that, Srila Prabhupada has given us the perfect process, which means we engage in our ashram, and then as time goes on and we're able to transform or purify, then we engage in this process of renunciation. And we can trust Srila Prabhupada's wisdom, right? We can trust what he's told us. We can trust his guidance. So what did Prabhupada say to us about making advancement in householder life? In a class in Tehran, August 1976, Prabhupada taught us, he said, anyone who takes to Krishna consciousness, that person is first class. That's all, no matter who it is. We take to Krishna consciousness. And he said, so our principle should be first, how to make people Krishna conscious. That includes the Grahastha ashram. Of course, every couple, that is what we are attempting to do, is become Krishna conscious. And so Prabhupada says, then we will be successful, right? Because then we will be exemplary for others. He said, either as Grihastha, as a Vanaprastha, as a sannyasi, it doesn't matter. The philosophy, the truth, that needs to be told. And then everyone will be happy. And as I said earlier, what caught my attention with the Bergen County Yatra was was all of you doing Harinam together, old and young together. I saw young people and older people, and everybody just was having such a beautiful time doing that. And I thought how wonderful that is, because this is what Srila Prabhupada taught us. Grihasthas are, to be happy. And he also said that it's not that only sannyasis or vanaprasthas or brahmacharis can reach Krishna. He said, no, a grihastha, a householder, can also reach Krishna, provided that person becomes pure, of course, provided that person is without material desires. And that's a quote actually from Srimad Bhagavatam, from the 3rd canto. And then he also explains to us that grihasthas, they engage in deity worship. Again, we know this. This is what helps the house, the home, and help the family to really be nurtured and to really develop this love that we are trying to express with each other and ultimately to Krishna, for Krishna. And Prabhupada adds in this purport, he says, under direction of a spiritual master. So that's understood, right? Happy grihasthas know that, they take spiritual initiation and they engage in the process. And as they engage in the process, then they become pure, they become purified. And in that way, we make rapid progress in spiritual knowledge, and also in our exemplary life. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he gives us a tool or a technique. And he said, if in our consciousness, we can think of our relationships as like a triangle. So there's one person on one end of the triangle, there's another person on the other end, and Krishna is on the top of the triangle. So he says, if we can visualize this triangle always in everything that we do, then we will certainly make spiritual advancement, no doubt. And that's what makes grihastas happy, is to be engaged in spiritual activities. However, if we forget Krishna, then it becomes so difficult. So Bhaktitirtha Maharaj, he says that this concept, this understanding about us being in this triangle, it really assists us with the basics of the physical and the emotional and the spiritual parts of our relationship with each other, because compatibility is so very important in a marriage. And so our dedication to being Krishna conscious is the ultimate goal. And this compatibility comes from having Krishna as the center. This is how we get helped in becoming happy couples, happy grihastas. So you all know this, and I know that you know that what's helpful, some helpful tips for this, for living this principle, is to have spiritual friends, friends that we trust, friends that we can talk to, confidential friends that we can reveal our hearts, our minds to. It's also important to have wise elders around us, because wise elders can help us from their experiences. They can help us in terms of us not making the same mistakes that maybe they had made before, or they can help us in showing us the wonderful path for us to walk. Because if they're wise, then they will be giving us so many instructions that will help us, or they will be nurturing us in so many ways. Also, another tip that's helpful is for couples to have like little small groups where they meet together. They meet regularly. Because spiritual life, although we say it's easy, it's simple for the simple, as what Prabhupada said. It's simple for the simple. However, for the grihastas, because we are engaged in so many different activities, we know that it's not always as simple as, of course, Srila Prabhupada has told us, even though what Prabhupada has said is absolutely true. However, we are going through oftentimes in the grihasta ashram, this purification, as we shared earlier. And so sometimes it can be difficult in some cases for some people, not for everyone. So that first principle, spiritual growth and progress, personal growth. The next principle that we would like to talk about, and I hope I could get through all 5 because we have an hour, and I'm talking a little faster. Actually, all of these principles I am sharing is part of our our Grihasta team. We have a book, and I'm just going to try to show you this book right now. It's called Heart and Soul. And this is from the Grihasta Vision team. And in this book, we share some of these principles in order to assist Grihastas. And so the second principle is the principle of commitment and dedication. Why is that a principle? Why is, it's already understood that if you're married, you're supposed to be committed and you're supposed to be dedicated. But we know, Grihastas know this. Things do not always go according to plan. This we know. So because we know this, we got to prepare ourselves, right? We understand, like, okay, how do I become committed and dedicated? Lots of times what happens when people get into this ashram, we kind of think that it's about romantic love, right? Romantic love versus genuine love. So how do we express this genuine love? Someone might say, well, our scriptures say that the only love that exists is the love for Krishna. There's no other love in this material world. That's famous, right? That's a famous quote. Don't talk about love, only Krishna. And I say, well, yes, absolutely. However, Krishna teaches us by his example how to love the devotees. Krishna is Bhaktavatsal. He shows us by his example that loving means loving each other. How do we do that? right? And so one of the things that devotees, sometimes one of the things we all miss is the fact that we are to aspire to develop this love amongst ourselves, especially couples, especially Grihastha couples, in order to plant that seed of love for Krishna, because ultimately the love is for Krishna, ultimately. However, if we don't start experiencing that here, then it's difficult, to experience that with Krishna. So commitment and dedication in Krishna consciousness is necessary. It's necessary to help us to grow spiritually. And because why? Because difficult times are inevitable as couples. That's what makes happy couples, because they understand we're going to face some difficulties and it's okay. Things don't always go according to plan. However, if we have determination and commitment, almost any challenge can be surmounted, no matter what it may be. So as I was saying, we're conditioned to think of marriage in terms of romantic love. And that's kind of reflected in the movies and novels. We do premarital counseling. We have a couple in our Grihastha Vision team, Partha and Uttama Prabhus, and they do specifically premarital counseling. And inevitably, when people come together, when couples come together, so much of how they think about marriage is like the movies. They think, oh, yeah, live happily ever after, everything goes beautiful. And, then we know, okay, they're in the romantic stage, and that's okay. The romantic stage is beautiful. However, we know, okay, as happy couples, we know there was a time when the romantic stage might not be as romantic as it was in the beginning. Because again, what we know as Grihasthas is things change. Things change. So loving, how do we develop this commitment and dedication? Again, I'm going to use the Bergen County Yatra as example. This is developed through dedicated service and cultivation of mutual respect and admiration. That's what I saw in that video. When I saw all of you on Harinam, I saw that there was a mutual kind of affection for each other, mutual respect, mutual admiration, and you were engaged in devotional service. And this is what helps us in being committed and dedicated. Because in any devotee relationship, spiritual intimacy and closeness develop as a result of serving Krishna together. This is how we develop this kind of spiritual intimacy with each other. Krishna, again, is in the top of the triangle. And so Prabhupada, what did Srila Prabhupada teach us? As you will hear, each of these principles, I will share what Srila Prabhupada has taught us, because we're Prabhupada-nugas, so we're following in the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada. And he's given us amazing instructions of how to live happily in Grihastha life. So he said in a Bhagavatam lecture, and from Bhagavatam again, the third canto, he said that formerly husband and wife used to live together peacefully throughout their whole lives. So this was commitment and dedication. And in many cases, sometimes they didn't have Krishna consciousness. They just understood that that's what marriage meant, is to be committed and dedicated. Again, that's from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 21st chapter, and the 15th verse, if you want to check it out. And then Srila Prabhupada also said, yes, wife and husband once combined, that is for life. There is no question of separation in all circumstances. Either in distress or in happiness, there is no question of separation. Now, of course, Kali Yuga, we're all Kali Yuga children. So sometimes we have challenges that we face, and we don't always have the tools how to address those challenges. So yes, we can say in our ISKCON organization, we do have divorces and separation. Almost all the time, it's because of not having adequate tools, adequate care, adequate guidance to help us to address the challenges when they come up, because they do come up. And so Prabhupada says that it was initially we understood that it was for life, this relationship. Happy couples know that. And they know, okay, we're committed. And yes, there will be times when it won't be so, we might experience challenges and difficulties. And that's okay. That's a part of being happy, even though it doesn't sound like that. And that was in an arrival address in London, but made that comment. And then Prabhupada also, there's one other quote that I thought was really important for.
Hare Krishna Mataji, sorry, I think you got muted.
Okay, are we okay now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, right. All right, so Prabhupada says that it's not that a chaste woman should be like a slave while her husband is a Naradama, the lowest of men. Although the duties of a woman are different from those of a man, a chaste woman is not meant to serve a fallen husband. If her husband is fallen, it is recommended that she give up his association. Giving up the association of her husband does not mean, however, that a woman should marry again and thus indulge in prostitution. Prabhupada was rough with his words. If a chaste woman unfortunately marries a husband who's fallen, she should live separately from him. Similarly, a husband can separate himself from a woman who is not chaste, according to the description of the Sastras. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 11, Text 28, Prabhupada's purport. Why did Prabhupada say this? Why did he make this statement? Why did he speak this quote? Why did he actually spoke this in some lecture that he was given about, about a chaste woman and a chaste man, because he understands Kali Yuga affects us so much. And unless we are able to really internalize what Grihastha life is and what it means practically, then we won't be able to really be an example for ourselves or for anyone. And so it's important to understand that there are roles for male and female, and those roles that we have, they're founded in love and care for each other. Love and care, that's never to be minimized. And so Prabhupada tells us, what to accept and what not to accept. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he quotes in his Spiritual Warrior 2, he says, love is not a business engagement or a contract with an escape clause for difficult circumstances. And something that Grihasthas know, we know this because, we're living in Kali Yuga. People are not loving and loyal all of the time. They're just not. And so unless we can understand this principle of dedication and commitment, then when we face situations where someone might not be loyal, might not be so loving, then it can really cause us to not want to be in the relationship. So Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj says, love is a sacred relationship where partners come together to serve and to reveal their weaknesses and strengths, where they come together and they exchange with each other. Which brings us to our third principle. And our third principle is about family love and affection. That's one that, what we always heard. When I joined Krishna consciousness, I used to hear Grihastha life is a deep, dark well. That's all I ever heard. I was like, oh, okay. So how are we going to get out this well? So Srila Prabhupada so kindly has taught us really how not to be in the well. So we would think that one of the reasons we are in the well is because we are not supposed to have affection for our family. But that's not what Srila Prabhupada said, not at all. Vaishnava family affection is natural because it's based on giving the relationship proper care. And if we don't understand how to care for each other, then how are we going to be exemplary for the world? So it's natural to have affection for others, and especially Vaishnavas. We are affectionate people, and family ties are necessary. It's not an impediment for Krishna consciousness. And so this theory of the well has to be properly understood. So grihastas can actually be instrumental to the success of a devotee, because if they provide the association and the stability in life, they can be exemplary for others. So our marriage should be seen as having kind of like it's an existence of its own, in which all of the needs of the grihastas are properly cared for. The needs of a couple know that within the grihastha ashram, there are so many needs that may come up. And they know that that has to be properly cared for. That's the way that they show affection for each other. So it's not that relationships are going to survive like automatic pilot. No, there's a need for a what we call TLC, tender loving care, just so that we can readjust from time to time in our relationships. So this family affection is very important for the commitment and dedication of couples. Children need to be given affection and attention and personal time by both parents. That's a part of family affection and love. All members of the family need to feel loved, valued, protected, and appreciated. These are very important words to really imbibe in the dictionary of grihastas. Appreciation, protection, value. They're so important for grihastas involving in the ashram. And Srila Prabhupada, what does he say? He says that the reciprocation of service and love between husband and wife is the ideal of a householder's life. Service and love between husband and wife is the ideal. This is also from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, 23rd chapter and the first verse. Then in the Krishna book, Krishna says, "My dear beautiful wife, you know that because we are householders, we are always busy in many household affairs. And for a long time, I long for a time," Krishna is saying, "I long for a time when we can enjoy some joking words between us," because he's saying they're always busy. That is our ultimate gain in householder life. Actually, householders work very hard day and night, but all fatigue of the day's labor is minimized as soon as they meet husband and wife together and enjoy life in many ways. Lord Krishna wanted to exhibit himself as being like an ordinary householder who delights himself by exchanging joking words with his wife. This is a talk between Krishna and Rukmini in the Krishna book. This is from chapter 60. And His Holiness Bhaktitirtha Maharaj, he says, love is seeing your partner as a gift from Krishna. We must go beyond just loving our neighbors. We say we want to love our neighbors. That includes loving ourselves and loving the person that was sent to us as a gift. And how do we express that love? Through being affectionate. Affection is an important aspect of Grihastha life. Bhaktitirtha Maharaj says, Love is about treating all relationships as practice and preparation for the ultimate divine relationship with the Supreme Lord. So we're in practice. Happy couples know that. We are sent to each other to practice, to learn how to love Krishna. And Narada Muni, he said he saw that Lord Krishna was engaged as an affectionate father petting his small children. That's from the Krishna book also, when Narada visited the home of Krishna. So this principle of understanding about family affection, needs to be clearly understood. Even extended family, the extended family and community are so important. Happy couples know the importance of extended family, because that extended family gives us a sense of belonging. It helps us to feel secure. It gives us a sense of security. And that extended family, they can ensure that family members stay strong in their commitment, and that they provide support and assistance in times of difficulties. So we don't want to minimize in any way our extended families, because they're a part of how we show this Vaishnava love. Okay, I'm going on to the next principle. I'm moving a little quickly, only because I know we don't have so much time. And usually all of these principles can be a whole workshop. So I'm just breaking them down very quickly for us. Okay, this one is super important. Couples know this one. They know that this has to be a part of their portfolio as happy couples. Happy couples, they have open, honest communication. Open, honest communication. People, it's important to remember that the key to marital harmony is to be able to sit together and talk together with each other. Make the time to do that. It's the key to a peaceful and happy marriage. Even with a busy schedule, Krishna says he wanted to laugh and have fun with Rukmini, even with a busy schedule. So it's important to set aside time for heart-to-heart communication with your spouse and children. And children, not excluding the children. We need to check in with the kids. We need to know what's going on with the children in their life, what's happening. They're individuals, they're persons. When they are in school, or if they're not school age yet or whatever, we need to talk to them. We need to find out what's happening for them. So we understand, we know in spiritual life that revealing the heart and the mind is a part of the way that we, I'm sorry, my phone is ringing. Okay, I gotta turn it off. Sorry about this. Okay. So yeah, in terms of having, I'm so sorry, I'm turning off my phone. So within the family unit, this exchange of love is by sharing confidentially from our heart. This is Rupa Goswami, right? This exchange, confidential exchanges. And so we do that in confidence, especially important things that goes on in our lives. And so something that's really the conversations, open, honest communication that we need to have as grihastas, that happy couples know that they need to talk about. We need to talk about intimacy. We really need to talk about sex life. We need to talk about financial matters. We need to talk about these kinds of very sensitive issues. And because why? Why do we need to do this? Because it builds trust, it builds cooperation, and it builds confidence in the relationship. Happy couples know this. Trust is such an important part of any relationship, and especially in Grihastha ashram. Trust is one of those things that, oftentimes can somehow make us so confused in the Grihastha ashram if we don't have trust. Srila Prabhupada taught us that love and trust should be there. That's the basis of just being a good devotee. It needs to be there in our relationship and in our communities. So communication skills is important to learn, right? Just like when Ram Tulsi Prabhu introduced me, he said that I, have some skills in conflict resolution and mediation. And I can say that those tools come in so handy in our relationship. My husband and I, we've been married for it's 30 years. And so in our relationship, if we didn't have, tools to help us, of course, somebody could say, well, the ultimate tool is to hear and chant. And we absolutely agree with that. That's the ultimate tool. And that tool helps us short-term and long-term. However, we sometimes need more help short-term. So short-term help for happy couples is to have this skill of communication. And I recommend every couple to take a course in learning how to communicate with each other, because that's one of the areas that break down relationships with couples. So what does Srila Prabhupada teach us about this open and honest relationship? He says offering gifts in charity, accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, accepting prasad, and offering prasad. These are the 6 symptoms of love, right? Shared by one devotee to another. So disclose our mind, share our minds. There's no secrecy between with happy couples. They don't have secrets from each other. This is one of the ways that love manifests, is by not having secrets from the beloved, from the person you love. Ultimately, that person goes back to, as we said, to the triangle, to Krishna. So this was from a lecture from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he says, love is a sacred relationship in which partners come together to serve. And this is, I think I shared this already, and to serve and reveal their weaknesses and strengths for growing. So in this open, honest relationship, there's so much we can talk about in open, honest relationship, because many couples have challenges in this area. However, something to always remember, life is not always fair, So the way that we can understand, the way we can address that life is not always fair is by talking about how the unfairness of life impacts us in our relationship. So this is our 4th principle, open, honest communication. And our last principle from the Grihastha Vision team is economic development. This is so important for Grihasthas. So we need to learn how to spiritualize our wealth. Whatever Lakshmi comes to us, the principle is give, give, give. Grihasthas, giving in charity is an essential duty for Grihastha ashram. We are the ones that support and promote activities by maintaining temples, by distributing books, by prasadam, outreach programs. I see the beautiful program you have there in Bergen County. And so this principle. Somehow we need to imbibe this principle, extend this principle to others. That's what we want to do, extend it. You have it, so let's extend it. We want to avoid in Grihastha ashram the poverty mentality, because Grihastha ashram is not supposed to be an ashram of poverty. It's an ashram where you have families, that you have to take care of. So poverty as well as overindulgence, both, can be an impediment to spiritual life. So we don't want to overindulge. We don't want to spend 24 hours a day trying to earn money. and we're getting sick, and our minds are disturbed. At the same time, though, we don't want to think, oh, I'm, whatever Krishna sends, no endeavor. I won't do anything. No, not like this. Because, wealth has an enormous benefit. Krishna is, wealth. It helps family stability, and it helps to promote Krishna consciousness. So this is really important for the grihastas. What in terms of us being those persons that are responsible for supporting the other ashrams. So what did Prabhupada teach us about economic development? Prabhupada says, if by chance or by the grace of the Lord some money comes, it should be properly engaged for the Krishna consciousness movement. And one should not be eager to earn more money simply for sensual pleasure. Now he's teaching us, it's not for a sense enjoyment. He didn't say don't earn money, don't have nice things. He said just to enjoy your senses arbitrarily, just to enjoy. This is to be as an offering to Krishna. Have a nice house, offer it to Krishna. Have a nice car, offer it to Krishna. Whatever it might be, Yukta Vairagya, engage it in Krishna's service, especially for the grihastas. Prabhupada said, any householder, he requires some deposit in the bank for emergency. This is, of course, allowed for householders. But just for us, we are sannyasis. He's talking about himself. He's a sannyasi. We are renounced. We're in the renounced order of life. We haven't got to accumulate money. Sannyasis don't accumulate money. But those who are householders, family men, they may have some deposit for emergency. Because in grihastha life, there is always some emergency. So this is a principle. And how do we accumulate wealth? The more we give, the more we get back. The more we give, the more we get back. So sometimes, as we're growing up in our family life, maybe we have maybe our mother or father, maybe usually, anyway, it could be the mother or the father, may not have learned this principle of giving. And sometimes we kind of grow up with that also. However, in Krishna consciousness, it's really important to give because it just makes us free to be able to give to others. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he says that this freedom to give is a decision. It's a decision that we can personally make at any time and under any circumstance. This decision to give. And I remember I have so many personal stories of all of these principles, but I remember very early in my Krishna conscious life, because Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj is a sannyasi, and he had sannyasis visiting. And my husband and I, we are grihastas. However, for much of our grihastha life, we lived like renounced grihastas. We lived in the temple environment. We were like temple president. He was a temple president. I was co-president for 10 years in Gita Nagari, and we lived very renounced. We didn't have anything so much, My husband he was doing things to earn some money, but not so much. And however, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj taught us, he said, whenever a sannyasi comes, to visit, I want that you give him a donation before he leaves. Okay, whatever, just give a donation. It doesn't have to be a lot, whatever it is, give something. That's a principle we learned very early in, as grihastas. So we practice that no matter what. If a sannyasi comes, we always have our little envelope with something to give, because he taught us that. And that's what Prabhupada tells us. Grihastas are to give, we're to give. And by that giving, that helps us to really develop more care and more love, more affection for others. And as I said, we have, it's like kind of, it makes us more free inside. So these are the 5 principles from our Grihastha Vision team. We have 12 principles that are guiding principles for Grihasthas. I've only shared 5 of them tonight, 5 that I thought might be important for us to remember, because happy families practice these principles. They live these principles. And so I would like to now ask any of you to please share with me, how have these principles impacted you, and what are you taking away tonight, and help me to understand how to live principles that you might be living in your Grihastha life.
Thank you so much for a wonderful session. Really very important principles. I really liked a few points that you have mentioned, actually, that very important part is like trusting Srila Prabhupada, because you have brought like Srila Prabhupada in every point where, like, Srila Prabhupada is actually emphasizing all your 5 principles through lectures, and Srila Prabhupada purports in Srimad Bhagavatam. That's one thing we need to really grab that. And also, like, to be happy, one point you mentioned is like, we have to always be under the guidance of spiritual teacher, right? Because when we, as a Grace Ashram, like, it's meant for spiritual growth and progress. That's the first point you have mentioned. And forgetting Krishna, it's actually sometimes becomes very easy for us because we are engaged in so many things. But when we are into that spiritual guidance, then it becomes easy. And your point about commitment and dedication, where you mentioned that difficult times are there, like you can avoid it, right? But when we are determined by living with these principles, then really we can overcome, right? And that's very deep and touching. And also you talked about, like, family love and affections, where, like, everybody, it's natural for us to be affectionate, right? And if we are not affectionate, then we are actually not a devotee. We have to think about ourselves, like, something is wrong with us. So that important, I think. And you definitely mentioned sometimes we become very sentiments and talk about, like, what is this, showing affection to families. These are, like, these are bodily attachments. So sometimes I think we miss that part, not showing that, like, the tender love and care, what actually is needed to bond the relationship within families and also with the devotees, very, very important. And the 4th point which you mentioned is the open communications, like, open, honest communication. That's the main important thing, to have that heart-to-heart communications, like, to have with, like, with the spouse, plus, like, especially with the children. I think that's one of the very lacking thing we can see nowadays, like, because husband wife busy, both are working, it's not in the Vedic culture. There's very less time actually spent with our children, right? And sometimes they are lagged behind, and they really feel loneliness. As the story says, like, hey father, like, how much money you make per hour? I make $20. Okay, here's the $20. Please spend me that hour with me. Like, kind of that, actually, it's about time. I think that will also comes, and that's why a lot of psychological needs of children are coming. And as you also mentioned that, like, when we have this open honest communication, then it actually develops trust, right? There's nothing to hide, and that this person is very, very honest for me. There's no no difficulty, right? And that this trust actually breaks everything. And definitely we all love to, like, have that non-violence communication training, to develop their skills of communication, for sure. And as you said, like, especially the quick fix that everybody, because that's how everything starts from. And thank you for that. And also, like, the very important aspect that you really pointed out, this economic development, how we have to be financial stability has to be there as being Grihastha, right? Because as a Grihastha, as you were mentioning that, like, how it's maintain all the ashrams, right? And when Grihasthas really maintain well, like, they are economically developed, and actually they will be able to sustain the other communities. They will be able to, like, help the other ashrams. So that is very, very important part. I think the Grihastha has to be, like, stable economic development, because it's not, as you mentioned, it's not an ashram of poverty, right? So every member has to be taken care of. Children, they have some needs, like, everybody, very, very beautifully pointed out. And we, as life, there are emergencies, we need to have that backup, so that there is not too much hassle and disturbance in our regular life with that ups and down. So thank you so much, Mataji, for this wonderful, like, presentation. That is really touching, and we'd love to hear again more. Like, it was not enough, you're quick. it's we're hearing like we were inspired much. So before question and answer and comments, I would like to share.
You did such a beautiful recap, and thank you for all your programs. Just so wonderful.
We're trying, Mataji. Like we had opened this center, I think almost 4 years. So it was because of COVID again, it got affected, but we had like this virtual started. Actually, even before COVID, we started this virtual association for our community, and many devotees are getting like benefited from this, and we are very thankful. Like because I've been hearing you, even Nepal, like Suchar Mataji, all of the devotees are talking about like and I really wanted to bring you like for our community that like a lot of I think a lot of the couples needs to hear this. As you were mentioning, there is it's not the information like the tools are missing. That's why I think that tool has to be like given to devotees, and in life like if you don't have a tool and skills, definitely you fail somewhere, right? Even it could work like it could flourish, the ashram could flourish so much, but sometimes you don't have that guidance, you don't have this tool, then naturally falls down very easily for us. And definitely this kind of session I think very much inspired devotees. So if anybody has any question, they can unmute themselves or send a question.
No, I have a question, Prabhakar.
Yes, Prabhakar, please go ahead.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I have a question, two questions in fact. People used to consult the astrology before marriage, husband and wife before marriages. Do that tradition still continues, or what is what they predict? Does it come out true, or what is your opinion? That is one question. Second is, I'm married for 50 years with my wife, and I am only participating in the Krishna program, but my wife will come back sooner or later into the same fold. Her father was in the same fold before Hare Krishna movement. So my second question was that how do we achieve, compatibility and all those things? Is it natural, or is it, is it part of the thing? This is exactly my second question. When we get the marriage, Indian traditional marriage, we go around the fire 7 times. We used to go. I don't know if still after 50 years it is going to go on. But what does it mean? Are we married for next seven lives? We are going to be promising that we will be marrying same person for next 7 lives. That is the second question. Okay. So can you throw some light on that one?
Yes. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for asking those 2 questions. Thank you. As far as astrology, there is a devotee friend of ours that is an astrologer, and she says astrology can give some idea. However, Krishna can change it whenever he likes. So yes, we also recommend that devotees prior to getting married, that they get astrological readings to give them some idea of what could possibly be in the future for them, or just some things about their own personalities and nature that might, be compatible or not compatible. However, as devotees, as Vaishnavas, we know that Krishna can, that as we serve, then some of those things we can see it's not always, we may not always be affected by the astrological readings. So the answer is yes and no. Yes, we recommend it. At the same time, we say don't fully just think it's only by the astrological readings, because bhakti is so much more effective in our lives. So much more effective in our lives. And as far as compatibility, well, first of all, let me celebrate you for being married for, you said 50 years?
50 years. 72 to now. 22. Okay. Second question you're going to answer, right?
You're one of those wise elders. You're to, this is so beautiful to have wise elders in the community. As far as I've learned about compatibility, as you know, Prabhu, you can be compatible. However, it doesn't mean challenges won't be there. It's how we deal with the challenges, right? That when they come, that's the real compatibility. How committed and dedicated we are to embrace the challenges and see them as opportunities.
Yes.
Yeah.
About the wedding taking 7 rounds, do you have any opinion?
Right, the 7 rounds. I remember having that conversation recently with someone, another devotee, and from what I can understand, as far as the rites of the 7 round of the going around 7 times, I am told that if a person is not practicing bhakti, that 7 times is very important. It does have some impact in those persons coming again and participating in marriage. However, when we take to the path of Krishna consciousness, when we take to the path of bhakti, then we can understand that if we become pure, we can automatically go to Krishna. And so that's the mood of the grihastas, is that we're endeavoring to serve in order to become pure, so that we don't have to take birth again, that we can just be with Krishna. Now, I don't know, I can't say definitively if we take birth again, will we come back to be with that same mate? I don't know about that.
I just want to say that when I got married, my astrology chart, my parents found out that he will marry her only, and marriage will always have problems every time, because we both are eldest children for our own families. I'm the eldest son, and she is the eldest daughter. But normally in our religion, we don't pair the eldest to eldest, because both are strong-headed. So maybe that could be a reason. But ultimately, we both have questions every issue, and it has to be forced one way or the other. That's why I wanted to check with you. Okay, thank you so much for it.
Yes, thank you. Yes, we do have our natures, right? It sounds like you and your wife have your nature. And, the beautiful thing is that you're both practicing bhakti, you're both in Krishna consciousness. And so Krishna now, he is the father in the relationship. So, whatever, how the services that you're offering to him, he's seeing that from both of you. And ultimately, you're in his hands.
Thank you very much for your help.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare
So
Krishna.
there is one question in chat. It says that, how to appreciate the service done by wife? How often should we appreciate?
Yeah, appreciation is so important. In marriage, there is 5 A's to practice. 5 A's. One is attention. Giving your partner attention as much as you can possibly give attention. 2, acceptance, accepting your partner with all their flaws. 3, affection, to be able to hear your partner and to let them know that they're loved, that they're cared for, to be able to hold them in that, I'm not speaking of a sensual or sexual hold, but a hold of love and care. And that is to be done regularly in order to keep that bond, just a touch. Sometimes just touching on the head is just such a nice touch. That's important. Affection, appreciation, right? That's 4. That's the 4th A. because you want to be valued, you know, you want to feel valued. You want to be appreciated for the things that you've done. So if you cooked a nice meal, then of course it's nice to be appreciated for that, to be valued for that. Now, one of the challenges is our childhood upbringing. So if a child was not appreciated, then the tendency is as they're adults, they might not be able to show or speak that appreciation because they never learned it. If they don't get it as children, that's why it's emphasized so much on parents communicating with their children. Speaking words of appreciation to the children is so important because that's who they become when they get older. And you know, if it's a guy, it's gonna if it's a male child, that male child will have a wife if it's not gonna be a brahmachari. And whatever that parent trained them, that's what they're gonna give to their wife. So now what happens if you have a husband that was not trained in appreciating, right? They don't understand how to share, how to speak words of appreciation. Then it's important for the wife to appreciate him, even though he might not be appreciating you. The more you appreciate someone, the more they start realizing, oh, maybe that's something I need to be doing. So oftentimes what happens is, you know, our false egos get in the way, and because we tend to think, well, he's not appreciating me, I'm doing all this and he's not appreciating me. We don't realize that that person has like a handicap, you know, because maybe they never learned it. As I said earlier, they never learned how to appreciate. So we do our best to try to encourage that person and try to help them in as best as we can as wives, because you know, as wives, there's always, you know, it's sometimes difficult to hear from the wife. So maybe we ask an elder, or maybe we ask a confidential friend, you know, to talk with our mate to help them to understand more about this A, which is appreciation, because it's often requires training to learn how to appreciate for many people. And then allowing, right? Allowing, that's the last A. Allowing is to be able to let the person be who they are. That's really hard. It's a hard one to let go. And okay, maybe this person doesn't know how to appreciate yet. But however, as we are committed and dedicated to the relationship, then the person will eventually learn. As people get older, they learn more. We're always growing in these relationships. So now how can we be happy? How can we say we're a happy couple if we don't get appreciated? How do we say, how can we say we're happy? Well, we can say, I am happy because I'm learning within my own self, what is it that I need? And how do I feel when I'm not getting that? So when you're not getting appreciated, how do you feel? I'm guessing you feel sad, maybe even angry, maybe even disturbed. And once you're able to identify and be aware, then you can have open, honest communication. You can say, you know, when you don't appreciate me, I feel really hurt because I really need acknowledgement. There's a way to communicate. Yeah. And not to, you know, you just don't appreciate. I'm not going to cook anymore. You know, I cook all this and you don't know, you know, because people sometimes don't know how to do it. They don't know how to appreciate. Yeah. We have a lot of expectations of what we think people are supposed to know in our relationships. And a lot of times the people fall short. People fall short from our expectations. I hope that was helpful. I am big on being compassionate. So a lot of what I say, you know, I think might maybe sound like in the clouds, because I do know though that the more compassionate we are, especially with those people that brings us hard times, if we're compassionate with them, then ultimately Krishna intervenes.
Thank you, Mataji, for that. So I just want to add the same on the same line. Sometimes, like, we are being misunderstood, right? We try to do so many things, all these 5 A's: attention, acceptance, appreciation. We try to do extra, like, but sometimes it's all about, in relation, sometimes being misunderstood. Like, I try to do so much. Like, how to cope with that and continue, like, in this 5 principle of Zen.
With the 5 A's. Well, it's there's another. Sometimes we can ask ourselves these questions. What am I afraid of? Because usually, we try our best, and maybe somebody else might not understand it. So does that bring up any fear in us? What are we afraid of? We may want to ask ourselves, what am I attached to getting or proving in the relationship? Are we attached to proving that, don't you see I'm doing my best? Can't you see that? Are we attached to getting somebody to just say to us, yeah, I know you're doing your best? What are we really attached to in terms of, in terms of what's our expectation? And what are we trying to control? Sometimes we're trying to control how another person think about us or how another person feel. And we're individuals. So the best we can do is to have open, honest communication with those persons and share what's going on for us. And lastly, we want to ask ourselves, what do I think I'm entitled to? Am I entitled to this person treating me a certain way? That's, if I have that mood of entitlement, then that person, it might be difficult for that person because they might be able to know that. Or you think you're entitled to me being whatever, or doing whatever, or saying whatever. I remember once I shared this pastime about Jamuna, Mother Jamuna Mataji, and she taught me that lesson about people just, she told me that about our organization. And she said, in our organization, many people are they just have entitlement issues. They just entitled, they think they're entitled to certain things, So we need to ask ourselves those questions. And so much of relationships has to do with our personal growth. Our personal growth. The more we grow, the more we affect the other person. I hope that was helpful.
Yes, definitely, Mataji. There is one more question in the chat. It says, we always have heard that we should be detached from family life. And here you're talking about developing affection to each other and family, and even extended family members. How does we can carry both affection and detachment together?
Yeah, right. We're in a deep, dark well, and there's no hope for us. Yeah. But this affection ultimately is for Krishna, ultimately. However, we're learning from each other. And so as we keep Krishna on the top of that pyramid, as I said, the pyramid, so one of us is here, one is here, and the Krishna is on the top, then we know that the affection that we are giving to our family member is ultimately an affection that we're trying to develop for Krishna. And so it's like a training for us. And this whole concept of the deep, dark well is just really misunderstood. Because how can you live in a relationship? Bhakti is love. That's what bhakti is about. How do you practice bhakti without practicing it with the person that's closest to us? How do we do that? And intimacy is, when I say intimacy, I don't necessarily mean illicit connections, like I'm not saying, have illicit connection. I'm saying have affection that is an offering to Krishna. It's a part of the bhakti process. So somehow this is why the Grahastha Vision team is doing such important work, because we're trying to change this mentality that we've had in our organization about householders. You know, Prabhupada said most of the devotees will be householders. So we have a huge responsibility. Oh, thank you, Linda. Thank you for being here. Hare Krishna. Linda is in New Jersey. Yeah, we have a big responsibility to our family members in order to help the world. How can we give bhakti to others if we tell them, oh, there's no affection? There's no affection. We have no affection. We don't touch each other. We don't. Of course, you know, we could say, well, the pandemic helped us to even become more isolated from each other, right? But yeah, the thing is, no, there is family affection. Family affection is really important. Krishna taught us family affection. We could say, well, that's Krishna. It's not us, but Krishna is, everything he does is to teach us. It's a lesson. Srila Prabhupada, you know, he had children, he had family affection. We can say like, okay, Prabhupada wanted to leave his wife at a certain time because he wanted to pursue the mission. He was with his wife for a long period of time before that. And even though we know that Prabhupada, that was not the person, the wife he had was not the one he really, really wanted. Still, there had to be some affection. And Prabhupada had affection for his children, very much. Didn't stop him from still being a part of the mission. That's what I'm saying. You know, we tend to think, oh, it's only this, but no, it's affection and service. Affection and service. It's not just one thing. That A-N-D is very important. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Anybody have questions?
Hare Krishna.
Anyone has any questions? So definitely, Mataji, we would love to actually host in person also. If you can come to, like, you know, in Bergen County, New Jersey, we're in New Jersey, in Paramus. We would love to have you in any Sunday program also. And definitely a lot of Matajis and, like, you know, yes, definitely getting, like, you know, those kind of tools and trainings. And they would be very, very happy if you can give us also, like, you know, time of some kind of seminar, 3-day seminar to us, like, you know, we'll be very, very grateful, like, you know, the Buddhism, like, you know, so
please let us know. Yeah, you know, the Great Heart Vision team, I'm sorry, right now we do offer premarital counseling training. We offer mentoring training, and you know, I do also a lot of training in conflict resolution, mediation, and compassionate communication. So please, yeah, we're happy to be of service.
So how can we connect, like, you know, for that, like, you know, it's like you already have some session going on, how we can join those sessions, or like how we can let the congregation know about this?
Yeah, well, if you can contact me, Prabhu, you have my information, and I can let you know what's available at this time. There is a course, I believe, in Radhadesh. I'm not sure it's happening right this moment, right now, but I know Uttaman Parta just finished a course, an online course. So we do have online courses. And if you would like for us to do some workshops, of course, we will be happy to do that. And that training, the training is available. If you have your congregation, let's say premarital training, that's available. And Uttaman Parta can easily, you know, just do that training.
It's really wonderful. Actually, we were planning even before, like, want to have in-person Mataji retreat, especially for, like, you know, all the Mataji, they have been working hard every day, like, you know, affairs. So we want to have them a kind of break and also learning more dedicatedly, like, you know, learning those in once in a year, have the retreat for them. So we were also thinking about that also. I'll keep in touch regarding that. Definitely.
Please do. We would love that. We would love to be more a part of your wonderful community.
Appreciate, Madhuri. Thank you so much again. So also, like I think you have mentioned that book, Happy Heart and Soul. So I think I saw in Amazon.
Yes, Heart and Soul. Yes, that's the book. And we can arrange, if you would like to, get some copies for your plate or your center, we can make that arrangements also.
Yeah, sure, Madhuri. If you would like to get a box or something, we could even distribute or in our center. So I will connect with you offline regarding that also. So,
Okay, sounds good.
thank you.
Yeah,
So
we can send you.
it's really it's really overwhelming for us, to give this kind of very important information for Grihasthas and upcoming Grihasthas too. Thank you so much, Mataji. So we're very thankful. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhuvidya
Evacha, Patitanam Padmebhyo, Vaishnavi. Jai. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ram Tulsi Prabhu. Hare Krishna.